Have you ever noticed how some of the most successful people in the world, well, they aren't always the nicest? Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful, maybe even uncomfortable idea, the hidden cost of trying to be liked instead of just being effective. We're going to look at this through some pretty extreme stories that I think reveal a basic truth about what it really takes to succeed.
So let's start with a really intense scenario, one that forces us to get right to the heart of this whole conversation.
Okay, I want you to really imagine this. You're in charge. You've got years of planning, the lives of your soldiers, the safety of who knows how many civilians. It's all on the line. The mission is everything. But then, out of nowhere, an innocent child stumbles on your hiding spot. If they run back to the village and say something, your whole team could be wiped out. So what's the right call? What do you do?
That right there, that's the actual answer from a real military officer, Colonel Kaushal Kashyap, when he was asked that exact question. I know, it's a shocking, brutal answer that just seems to go against everything we think a soldier should be. And it's a totally natural reaction, right? How can someone whose job is to save lives justify that? It feels wrong. It sounds monstrous. But before we rush to judge, we really have to try and understand the logic behind it.
See, from the colonel's point of view, the choice isn't really between nice and cruel. It's just a cold, hard calculation of risk. That one moment of compassion for the child could get his entire team killed. It could cause a mission that took years to plan to fail. And worst of all, it could end up costing thousands of innocent lives down the line. In that situation, a soldier isn't just a person. They're an instrument for their country, a weapon. And a weapon just cannot afford to take that risk.
Okay, that was an extreme example for sure, but it perfectly highlights this fundamental conflict that honestly we all face, just on a much, much smaller scale. So let's look at the same problem through the lens of a classic story, The Lighthouse Keeper.
So, your job is simple. It's singular, and it's absolutely vital. You have one responsibility, and one responsibility only. Keep that light on. The lives of countless sailors depend entirely on you doing this one thing.
Then one night, a woman comes to you, begging for just a little oil for her sick child. I mean, how can you say no to that? You give her some. A few hours later, another mother shows up. She needs oil to feed her hungry kids. Again, your compassion wins. You help her out. But as the night goes on, your lighthouse flame, it starts to sputter and dim. And then, in the dead of night, you hear it, a horrible loud crash from the rocks below.
And here's where it all gets laid bare. Your intentions were good, right? Your actions, if you look at them one by one, were kind. But by choosing those small acts of being nice, you failed at your single most important job. You let the light go out, and people died because of your niceness.
Now, this isn't just some old story. This principle of sacrificing your main duty for small, nice gestures, it plays out in our own lives every single day. And it even happens at the highest levels of success.
Just think about it for a second. You decide you're going to get healthy, but then you eat the cake just so you don't offend your aunt. Or you delete a distracting app off your phone, but you reinstall it just to like a friend's post so they don't feel left out. Every single time, you choose that momentary niceness and you sacrifice your bigger mission. You're letting your own lighthouse dim, just a little bit. And this isn't just about small personal goals either. When you look at people who achieve really extraordinary things like Elon Musk, you often find someone who is just relentlessly, almost ruthlessly, focused on their duty, way more than on being perceived as nice. So there's this story about an early Tesla employee. His wife was literally in labor with their first child, a once-in-a-lifetime moment. But the message came from the top. The mission needs you, right now. To Musk, nothing was more important than the company's survival.
And this really shows the deep human cost of that focus. Colette, who was a key marketing employee, worked so hard for 13 years that one day her own child called her Dad. That was the wake-up call, the moment she realized the true price she was paying. For her, the mission had just consumed everything. So you end up with this really stark contrast. To the world, he's a visionary, a hero changing the future. But to a lot of people who worked closely with him, he was a boss who just didn't seem to care about their personal lives. His focus was singular, the mission. Being nice wasn't just a low priority, it was kind of irrelevant.
You know, this constant urge to be liked, even when it means sacrificing our most important goals, it actually has a name. Let's break down the psychology that's going on here.
They call it the nice syndrome, and it's this trap we all fall into.
It's the mistaken belief that if we're just agreeable, if we avoid ruffling feathers, people will respect us and will get ahead. But as we've already seen, it often does the exact opposite.
So this syndrome gets us in 3 ways. First, there's something called the covert contract. It's this unspoken deal in our heads that says, if I'm nice to people, they have to be nice and respectful back. But life doesn't work that way, does it? That leads to the second trap, approval seeking. This is where our self-worth gets completely tied to what other people think. We become people pleasers. And finally, this whole thing can just blow up in your face. In today's cynical world, being too nice can actually be seen as manipulative. People start wondering, okay, what's their real angle?
So, if being nice isn't the path to success or respect, then what is? What's the real lesson here from all of this?
Here's the core truth. People at the very top of their game, whether it's a soldier, a CEO, or even a student acing an exam, they don't get there by being the most agreeable person in the room. They get there because they're focused, they're disciplined, and above all, they're effective.
And this right here is the most important takeaway of all. We're sort of taught to confuse being liked with being respected, but they are not the same thing. Genuine, lasting respect doesn't come from being a people pleaser. It's earned. It's earned when people see that you're committed to your purpose, that you do what you say you're going to do, and that you have the integrity to see your mission through to the end.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Look at your own life, your health, your career, your personal goals. What's the light that you're supposed to be keeping on? And are you maybe letting it dim just for the sake of being nice?